Good morning and thank you for having me. I was told my slot is an hour. If I speak for more than 15 minutes, I go to sleep myself. So I wonder what will happen to all of you. I asked Sachin, what do I speak to an audience of jewelers, to an audience of retailers? So he said, speak about anything. I thought I'll share with you my experience of the power company that I own and run, and how it started, what it was, and what it is. I grew up in this city, was born here, brought up here. When we went to school here, there used to be 12 hours of power cuts in the winters and 14 to 16 hours of power cuts in the summers. So when we went to give our exams, we were given blotting papers so that you didn't smudge your exam papers. And I grew up thinking, I said, why can't somebody lick this problem? And is it really that difficult? When I was 28, by plan, I was having a cup of tea with the then Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi, and he said, what is your aspiration? What do you think Calcutta needs to do? I said, first thing is to actually transform power supply. So he said, I've just committed the Bombay Power Company to Mukesh Ambani, and there is a company in Calcutta. Why don't you take that? At 28, you're young, you're stupid, you're impetuous, you're impulsive. So without knowing anything, I said, yes, that's a great idea. So he sent me to the finance secretary, and before I knew it, I think we had the trappings of a deal. We were a joint family business. Until that time, I hadn't thought of what my family's reaction would be. So I went and told my father that I've transacted this thing. He said, stupid. Say no. 14 hours of power cuts. Every citizen of the city will curse you. Wherever you go, they will identify you with their misery. And it's impossible to turn it around. He didn't eat his food for 2 days in disgust. And he said, how can I have a son who's so silly? Eventually, 4 weeks later, the family came around, and we owned a company that I subsequently realized was nothing but a liability. Power cuts was only the tip of the iceberg. The transmission network was appalling. The generation just didn't operate. The coal supply didn't operate. There were 4,000 people too many. The debt-equity ratio was over 5:1. And when I walked into the headquarters of this company the first day, the unions had a funeral pyre in front of the entrance. And they had my effigy, and as I entered, they lit up the pyre. And they said in Hindi, Sanjiv Goenka Murdabad, which means Sanjiv Goenka is dead. That was the atmosphere, that was the culture. I felt intimidated, And I thought I'd made a huge, huge, huge mistake. And I went back and I told my wife that my father was right and I was wrong. But having committed to it, we were there. So we started a process of communication with the consumers, a process of communication with the unions, a process of communication with the employees, and a process of communication with the regulators. Bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit. The first task was to build a delivery-oriented culture. So we got rid of 4,000 people. It took 18 months of negotiation. It took more than a golden handshake, but it happened. Then it was a question of inculcating a pride in achieving something in the remaining workforce. That took another 20 months. And the consumer hated the company because there were power cuts, the quality of power was poor, there were huge voltage fluctuations. So we started a process of communication with the consumer. I'm happy to say that today we have no power cuts. We actually have, as per the Ministry of Power in Delhi, the best power supply in the country. We have a situation where if there is a power outage because of maintenance, our engineers go with standby generators. We have backup supplies. 80% of our consumers are on mobile and email communication with us. Our collection efficiency today is 100%. Our transmission and distribution losses, which were the worst in the country, are now the best. It's taken a while. It's taken quite a while. But it was possible. It was possible because we didn't get intimidated. And I think we were able to anticipate change. Customer expectations kept changing and keep changing every day. What you give them today becomes their right tomorrow. There is a new expectation. And we have to match up to this. We had 78 offices in the city. And I said, what's the need for having physical touch points? So we shifted to virtual touch points. So instead of having prescribed hours once in a week, 24 hours, anytime, like you have anytime money, you have anytime contact. The second thing we believed is that we shouldn't do anything for vanity or ego. Whatever you do for the customer and you do for the bottom line. So we brought in a very strong bottom line orientation. And today every worker within the company actually says if we miss 1 hour, this is the impact on the bottom line. And now what we are embarking upon is to actually make power from a commodity business to a branded business. So we've begun the journey. It's a challenge. And from distributing power in this one city, we now distribute power in 5 cities in India. In Bikaner, in Kota, in Bharatpur, in Noida, and Calcutta. And there'll be more, hopefully, in the future. And I would say not 100% of our 3 million consumers in Calcutta, but at least 60% of them now prefer CESC as a supplier. We are a monopoly, but we are preparing for the stage when there is competition. And we are giving them service, which they're happy with. We are able to match up to constant renewed expectations. We, in fact, are helping them define their expectations. And the idea is, in another 12 months or 24 months, we should become the preferred supplier for at least 80% of our consumers. I think that is what all of you are doing, striving to do, and successfully doing. So we keep taking lessons and examples from successful retailers across the world. It's a learning. You keep learning every day. You keep learning with every experience. You keep learning with every interaction. And I've come to the conclusion that the only thing that's constant is change. The only thing that succeeds is reinvention. And the day you become complacent, that's the day you begun. Your failure is certain. I would just briefly touch upon our retail business. We are in the business of food retailing through hypermarkets and supermarkets. We had the option of going for scale, or we had the option of going for merit. We chose the latter. And today we are the best retailer in the country in terms of revenue per square foot, the best retailer in the country in terms of cost per square foot, the best retailer in the country in terms of margin per square foot. We are not the biggest. There are two other retailers who are way bigger than us, but we are happy. And I think going forward, we are per square foot the most profitable retailer. And hopefully as we go forward, the target is to actually become the most profitable retailer. Thank you for having me. I feel honored, I feel humbled. I'm ready to take any questions if you have any.
Ladies and gentlemen, any questions that the audience might have for our guest speaker?
Mr. Goenka, yours is a very touching life story, going through what you went through at the age of 28. You come from a family of many businesses, so business is not new to your family. But you still broke out and did something so new in a time when India was not what it is today. It was full of controls, and you were in a state which was the most difficult state to work in. What was your belief in yourself? What made you believe so much strongly in yourself? Who was your inspiration that allowed you to be what you are? I know a lot of people in your community, especially in West Bengal, are very, very dynamic business industrialists. But who was your singular inspiration, do you think you could tell us? And why do you think that person was so inspirational to be working from a state like West Bengal, which in India is known as the most difficult state?
Well, I think when you're so young, you don't think as much as you should think. So your decisions are not necessarily structured. They're sometimes a little impulsive. So if I had actually researched CESC as a company, I probably wouldn't have taken it. So I think what was an impulsive decision and a commitment then became a matter of, I have to prove myself. I frankly have always looked up to my father because he's been a man who never believed in convention. He never believed in boundaries. And he, in a way, always taught us that just go beyond the boundaries. So, but truly, I think it was circumstantial. I mean, it was a decision, as I said, it happened. And you grow up thinking, you grow up seeing these park arts, and you grow up believing it can be changed. You don't know how and what effort is required to change it. And so I think sometimes it's providence, and sometimes, in my case, I think it was partially I wouldn't say an overconfidence, but I would say a self-assurance in my own ability to deal with the situation. And that was the way I was even in school and college. So my parents always said I was overconfident. I don't think I was overconfident. I think I was just self-assured.
Hello. Mr. Goenka, I'm Biren Vaidya here, and really proud to have you here, and thank you, Sachin, for this wonderful experience. My question is that the first industry you talked about, the success of your life, has been in providing a necessity to the end consumer. And what you're concentrating right now on, as you just mentioned, was Spencer's, which is providing an experience to shop for this same end consumer. And with technology, a lot is changing. When you go around the world, you see dramatic changes happening. And the Indian consumer is a highly developed consumer, and I think even when you're buying things like food, you're spoiled for choices. You have everything coming home. Every Indian consumer is used to buying from a plane to his grain at home. And to get him to go out there with technology coming in and enjoying this experience where he has a choice. It's not like electricity, it's different. So you're going to have to wear a cap with a different mindset. And I'd like to know what your thoughts on this are.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I think this is what we are sort of right now struggling with in a way. But what we've come to the conclusion, and I hope it's the right one, is that you need to the consumer needs to feel happy when he's in your store. So the first thing we do is the lighting is a lot brighter than an average store. So you spend more on electricity, but he feels good when he walks in. Second thing we are trying to consciously inculcate is a feeling of life in the store. So there is always some activity that's taking place. So people don't feel lonely or morose. So it's not only about music playing in the background, it's about a certain level of chatter that happens. And the third thing is the choice that you offer, which you can't get online, and the experience that you have. So when you go, each of our sales representatives is trained to actually say, okay, you're looking for cereals, so you have Kellogg's, now you have this, which is a health thing, you have this, which is made in Hong Kong, you have this, which is made in America, etc., etc., etc. You're looking for sauces, so okay. Are you looking for salad dressings? This is the fat-free range, this is the light range, this is the oriental range. Now try this, experience the taste of this. So you have a roasted sesame thing, which is new. Try it. So you will have some salad leaves, and you make him try the dressing. So there are little things, the little experiences. So recently there was a launch of wheat thins by a company. So they said, what is wheat thins? It's a khakra. So they explained that these wheat thins are not just khakras. They have nutrients, and they have grains which are very high in protein, etc., etc., and you try it. And so it's about experience. It's about actually engaging them and making them enjoy and wanting them to come back. So it's about actually not making them wait in the tills. So it's about actually electronically clearing their bills even while they are waiting. It's about just making it easy for them. It's about making it fun for them. So you have little things which the children can do while the mother is shopping. So it's about building experiences, and you learn every day. So I can't say that we are there at the end of the journey. Certainly not, I think. But the idea is to give a better and better and better physical experience, because that's the only way we believe you can combat a virtual experience.
Mr. Goenka, I was very, it's such an inspiring story. And I'm struck by when you arrived that day and they were setting fire to you. It's one thing to somehow find the confidence within yourself that you can succeed. But I'm struck by the fact that you needed to bring an entire organization of people with you on that journey. And they may not have had the same self-confidence that you had, that you would succeed. So I wonder if you could share some insights on how you were able to bring this long-established, underperforming organization on your journey.
It began actually with having a couple of success demonstrations. So you choose something that appears big but is actually very simple to crack. And once the first couple are done, the people start believing in you. And the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one, and then they grant you a couple of failures as well. But I think it was important for the first 2, 3 to actually steps to be right. I was fortunate that that was the case with me, so it became relatively easy. And I think what also happens is when you come with a legacy, you come with a family brand, I think it's easier. It's more difficult in a way, it's easier in a way. So, I mean, when you have the first couple of successes, then people say, these people are meant, they're experienced, they know. So at 28 years, where is the experience? But the name helps you there, and they say, these people are capable. So we can trust them. The first 6 months, it was, this is so-and-so's son, this is from such and such family, so the expectations are a little higher. So it's also a question of managing the expectations.
Just to follow up on Stephen's question, what was your first pep talk to the executive team as you're walking in and people are threatening your life?
Yeah.
What do you say to the management team? And did you keep the same management team, or did you actually bring in new ones?
So let me tell you, as I was walking in, and so the building is it's shaped like this, like a semi-triangle. That's the entrance, and you're walking in and you're seeing yourself being burnt. So believe you me, my knees were rocking and my voice was trembling, and it was very hard to actually, and you're surrounded by about 8,000 people who are chanting Sanjiv Goenka Murdabad. So it was actually very difficult, but at the same time one had to portray that I was not unnerved. Truly speaking, I was. And I went in and the senior management was there, and so I said, each one of you has been, and they were all 50 plus, 55, 58, 60. And I looked at myself and I said, oh my God. But what I told them was, listen, you all have been here for 20, 30, 35 years. It's my first day. I will have to learn from you as we go along. But I do believe that each one of us is here for a cause. You're not here just for your paychecks. You're obviously here for a cause, as I am. So can we commit together to work for that cause, which is to make Calcutta load shedding free? And I think that resonated with the management team. And they were all, at the end of the day, each one of them was a consumer as well. And so they suffered at home, and their family suffered, and their children suffered. And I think that resonated, so that was the first level of buy-in. And then there were a few quick suggestions and a few quick addresses of situations. And I think there was reactions, there was resistance, there was intrigue. I mean, all that was there. But I think the buy-in to a cause which emotionally impacted them, that worked.
Just one more question. It's me here again. So I was just absorbing everything that you said. And what I understand from what you were answering on my first question was the need for detail. And that's what you're trying to do here in the retail space. And you also mentioned that you've done that in the past when you were communicating with your consumers in the electricity business and as you are doing right now. So the question is that you've already scaled up this need for detail and creating an experience for the consumer in the electricity, which is a large scale, and you're wanting to do that here. So scaling up something like this involves a lot of communication by a lot of people. So there's a huge amount of training and implementation that takes place. How do you manage that?
So now we have a complete team which actually just, it's a team of 43 people, qualified people who actually are training engineers, salesmen, the front-facing staff. So power was a commodity business. Today, power is a consumer-facing business. So it's about how you communicate to the consumer. It's about what you communicate. So we used to have reactions and gheraos and dharnas for every tariff increase. In the last 4 years, there's been not one such instance. The consumer is happy with the service. So you're communicating a potential increase to them even before. You're explaining to them why this increase is taking place. And as long as you're efficient, so what is within my control is my efficiency or inefficiency. What is beyond my control is beyond my control. And I think it's about communicating that. So you train a certain section of people to communicate the right things. So you lay down the right messages. And so for each of the companies that I operate, every month or every quarter, we choose 5 or 6 key parameters which we monitor. And the CEOs report to me on each of those 5, 6 parameters on a daily basis. So as far as I am concerned, there are 8 companies, there are 5 parameters per company, so it's about 40 parameters in a day. So it's actually fairly simple. And you have good people, you motivate them by giving them a cause, an identification, a task. And I think the hygiene is actually paying them well, but the motivation is actually giving them a cause. So for example, the Spencer's team today is actually looking at how do we become the most profitable retailer. So if you walk into a Spencer's store and if you're part of the management, so even a sales guy will actually tell you that an additional sale of this will mean this to the bottom line. So I think it's getting a bottom line orientation. So now they all understand that if you do a 100 rupees sale, 20 rupees is your gross margin. So that's really that's what you make at the end of the day. And if you lose that, you lose that. So it's about how they monetize their time. And I think it's a process. So I can't say we are completely there, but I would say we are about halfway there. And hopefully in the next 15, 16, 18 months, we will be there. Thank you very much. Yes?
We always all talk about the business and what we have achieved and so on and so forth. But as a person, on a personal note, Sanjiv bhai, there's always a struggle with everybody on work-life balance, giving time to the family, because we are so ambitious and we want to do so many things in our life. So maybe can you share some idea of how do you tackle that?
As I'm getting older, it's becoming easier to handle that. So right now, my daughter has 2 children. Both of them, she lives in Delhi. Both of them are here. And so I'm actually returning from work at 6 every day, no matter what, to spend the evening with my daughter and her 2 babies. And I think everyone in my organization knows that for these 10 days I'm going to be back home early. So again, there it's a question of communicating. So people don't come up to me with something after 5:30, 5:45. And I think it was difficult initially. I don't remember spending time with my wife or my children when they were young, but I'm certainly going to make up for it and spend time with my grandchildren now. Thank you. Thank you very much.